Hello. This is Jim. What I've got is I've got a rant. It doesn't seem like you can spend a lot of money or a little money. You can't make it work until you fix it first. I bought this Makita. It's a good name. It's an MLT100 table saw. And the first, I bought it a few years back. First thing that went broke was I couldn't adjust the blade up and down. That's because of this thing called the gearbox. It's stripped out. This is a little screw you turn to make the blade go up and down. And relatively inexpensive to replace. About 50 bucks for the bolt, the plate, a little bushing in there. And it strips right out. So, okay, great. Got to replace the plate. It's just one of the things that this saw just really makes me angry. Some of the other things that go wrong is how you change the blade angle. You're supposed to turn this handle, loosen that, it's a little lever, turn that, adjust it. It's really poor. Little teeth here is broken off because it's just a nightmare to use. The clamp here has a spring. Now, why did they put that spring there? Just to make you angry? I don't have any idea. Take the spring off, it still works. Take the little washer off. Get rid of that stupid spring. Put the washer back on. And then you can adjust this so that in about a little bit less than 3/4 of a turn, it could be from completely loose to fully clamped. So why not do it that way? Instead of making a struggle with this spring, which I'm pretty sure that's why that tooth is broken off. So I figured I was going to fix it anyway. Instead of doing this funky little maneuver, because when you're doing this, your hand is always getting interfered with this part. You try to turn it, you're just making that go, and that's just not good. So I'm going to leave that alone, put this on here, adjust it in a certain way so that when you turn this handle it makes a nice clamping action, and this here will just make the blade go up and down. Now this here rod goes inside. See, teeth are turning there, makes the thing go up and down. Now to make sure, I'm experimenting a bit here. I didn't want to use oil on that thread because it's going to be dusty in there, it's going to collect sawdust. So what I'm doing is well, first of all, that bolt looks a little bit white. So do these little guide bars here on both sides. The guide bars here, what I've done is I've coated those with soap. Let's see if that works. But I've also added the spring. And the way that spring works is, the saw is upside down, but the spring actually helps the thing go up. And then to go down, well, the weight of the motor, which is fairly heavy, the weight of the motor will just pull it down. So that's one modification, so that this screw doesn't strip out again. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this adjustment there, and you could use a piece of all thread. There you go. Nice piece of all thread. And this here, the way the action works, I can move this by hand now with all the clamping up. That doesn't actually move it up and down too far. So I'm thinking I can run a bar, a all thread from here through some kind of clamp arrangement or threaded nut that clamps around this bar, and I can go through this thing here, and then on the outside I can have a handle there and use a screw to adjust this angle. I'm going to do that by using this really thick piece of alloy that I stripped out of something else. I'm going to cut a block out of that. I'll drill it to make kind of a U-shaped thing that fits around this rod, and then I'll thread it through the guts of it. I'll thread it to fit this also. And I'm hoping that will be enough to allow me to use a screw to adjust this thing around. See how we go. So I have taken off these gears, circlip tool and all that, disassembled the gearbox, the part that I had to replace originally, and I needed to get to this, what I'm calling the bar, which is actually the adjustment rod. It sticks through there, uses that handle to actually turn this gear. And I needed to do that because that's where this chunk of alloy is going to go. I've had to draw some lines on it because that's going to allow clearance when I chop those parts out. I have to drill where I've center punched the diameter of this rod, and that will allow it room to move a little bit. And then I also need to go in through the end here, and that's where I'll run the threaded rod through. I'm going to try to thread it. There's a way I could probably use regular steel nuts. If the threads, this is alloy and all, and I don't trust it for not stripping out after repeated use. But it should work for a while, and if it doesn't, then I can always, inset nuts like these into the end of it somehow, and then that will give a nice long-lasting thread. So here's my all thread. I'll drill a hole here in the end, or I'll center punch that for that adjustment rod, and then I'll drill a hole so that this will go in here, and that's where I'll thread that, and that'll give me my my adjustment to pull that thing to a 45 and back to a 90. Alright, I've got the hole drilled for the all thread, nice and threaded. I've got that drilled out for the rod that operates the raising and lowering of the blade. So these have got to be cut now with the get my hacksaw action going again. I'll cut it out. These little chunks here will be gone, and that'll allow it to clear the pieces on the gearbox. Okay then, there we go, just sand it up smooth. That part's finished. Well, there you go. That piece seems to work all right. It turns freely. This can rotate the full amount. This is sitting upright. It goes a little bit beyond center, so I can put it up there and it won't touch. Fully degrees that way, full 45 degrees. Let's see how she goes. Good. Well, it's all together. I put this threaded rod in there, and it's just going through the plastic, which is temporary. I'm just testing it for now. Got my drill on there, just to drill through there. And let's see how this goes. I'll put it forward. Put it the other way then. And goes to 45. Brilliant. All that powder there is soap. I'm just soaping up the threads for lubrication and the alloy. Seems to have worked all right. Yep, that's going to work. Okay, this is not perfect, but its setup it's working. I still have to make a handle. So for now, just as a test, we've got the drill set up on the threaded rod. There's the rod that allows it to move up and down, or it has some movement there. Double nutted it on both sides to take the thrust. Piece of plywood, some angle that I'd bent up out of some sheet metal. in that aluminium block, threaded. Put on the adjustment bar there. Take a look at it. See how she goes. Okay, that's at 45 degrees. Be well exact. Should be pretty much, yeah, lines up pretty good. The scale might be a little bit off on the down here, but I'm not too surprised at that. Yeah, good shape, easy to do.